Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Sober Experience. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's staying dry. As promised, I said I'd get some more guests on the show, people who I've been watching, people I've been participating with, who I admire from a near and a far. And this week, we have my good buddy Alan, who I just met, within the last year. He's doing the thing. And, he's part of our home group over there at Greenwood. And, we've been trying to put it together to get him on here. The monsoon was in the way. A bunch of my wedding was in the way. I missed his anniversary. But I'm happy he's here now. And I can't wait to hear what he's got to say. So I want to say hello to Alan. Alan, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right, Alan, first things first. Where are you from?
I usually say I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I was actually born in Phoenix, Arizona. My family moved back to Minneapolis when I was like a year old. So Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Okay. Do you have siblings? What's the story?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of three. We're all like a year and a few months apart. My brother is in the middle, and my sister's the youngest.
What was it like growing up there in Minnesota? Were you like in the city, or were you in the suburbs or the woods? Like in my mind, I hear Minnesota, I'm like, oh, these guys are out there hunting elk and, don't tread on me flag and the whole thing.
It was like in and around Minneapolis.
Right.
I don't think ever in the heart of Minneapolis, but the city surrounding the city, and then suburbs in middle school and high school. And life was my parents divorced when I was 8, so I mostly remember life with Mom, like bringing us up.
Where did your dad live?
Where didn't he live is kind of the question. He was one of those guys who lived in his van wherever the van was parked. He's an alcoholic, so he was always out and about.
Now, did you know that when you were a kid? You were like, oh, this guy's out here drinking crazy? Or do you say, hey, this is just my life and my dad lives in a van?
The pieces kind of fell together as time went by. It was just, I think it was leaked a little bit by my mother here and there, but ultimately growing up and spending time around Dad and seeing that Dad was drinking or smoking. So it was kind of putting it together as time passed. Right.
Did you hear anything from your family about him? Like, were people talking shit?
Sometimes. Sometimes it was like, oh, him. Like, we know what he's about. Just kind of knowing and acknowledging that he's a drug addict and an alcoholic. But
how did that make you feel?
Growing up, I was one of those kids who had, and I still feel like I have it, like this sixth sense, this vibe of like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. So, when comments were made, there was that like, I don't understand what's going on right now, but this vibe doesn't feel good. Happened with race on my mom's side with my grandparents. It was taught when it was brought up and talked about. It was like, I don't understand this, but it does not feel pleasant.
Yeah. Why? They were like racist?
Yeah. I don't have much more to say about it, but it was, comments were made, words were used, stories were told, and it was always like, ooh, this doesn't feel right.
Right. Yeah, you have to trust that intuition. So you're a good person on the inside.
I feel like I can trust my intuition a decent amount. Other times I have to check it with other people.
Good idea. So when did drugs and alcohol make their way?
I was a good Christian boy. I dated a girl in high school, and she belonged to a church, and she invited me. I was a junior in high school. She invited me to church, and I went, and I participated in church. I, at that point in time, believed in the Christian biblical God, and that lasted into college, and then Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't start drinking until I was 21
Wow.
of age.
Yeah.
Is kind of the short answer to that, which ended up being the first year I went off to 4-year college because I waited a few years before I left for college.
What were you doing in between high school and college?
I sat around wondering what to do. I fumbled through community college for 3 years, failing miserably at coursework because it was just the next thing to do. In my family, it wasn't, like, college just wasn't prioritized. It wasn't talked about. And it was just expected that if you graduated high school, you found a job and you found a partner and you had children and you worked whatever job you could find. So it was kind of a culture shock for, like, Alan to go off to college.
Where did you go to school?
The University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, which is part of the university. It's linked to the University of Madison, the Badgers.
Right.
But it's a satellite school.
What was that like?
It was where I was introduced to alcohol in a heavy way, in a binge drinking way. I was part of a 60-man male chorus because I grew up in the arts, so acting and singing.
You did that in high school too?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah?
Musicals, plays, a cappella groups.
Wow.
That whole thing.
It's impressive.
I enjoyed it, but and that choir really served as like an unofficial frat.
Sure.
That's what it was, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have a group of people coming together doing the same thing that they all enjoy. Yeah, it sounds nice.
Yeah, what better thing to do than put a bunch of 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, mostly the younger ones, who are away from home, give them a beer and access to more, and you can really cover up the discomfort of not knowing people when you
Right.
go off to college with a situation like that.
Yeah, it's an easy way to make friends, even with people who aren't alcoholic or addict. They're like, they need a little bit of that social Vaseline.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, it was a blast. I've had a space recently of, I kind of was looking at my years of, pre-sobriety as all bad. Like,
No.
yeah. I kind of, like, in my brain, I made it very black and white. And it hasn't been until recent times and recent space where I can identify the beautiful things of the past and experiences, like this, singing fraternity, unofficial fraternity that I belong to. I was at one of my friend's weddings this past July. I played the guitar and sang at his ceremony. So, like, I'm close to a number of these guys still. But for some reason, I really kind of made a black and white retrospect in my brain about that part of life.
Right. Well, a lot of times when people get sober, they realize that they're coming from a place that's not, it's no longer welcoming, right? That
Mm-hmm.
life is, and you're like, okay, well, I can't be that, so I have to be this. Meanwhile, what does it say? Shut the door. We don't regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But over time, you're like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't all so bad. So when you started drinking with these guys, did it get out of control right away, or was it gradual?
It was out of control.
Plus, you were older. You're 21.
I was
Some of these
21.
guys were a little younger than you, right?
Oh, I was the guy collecting $20 bills who's making the liquor store run.
The supply.
Like, I was in an overflow dorm room with 4 other guys because we were all the guys who were too lazy to, like, sign up for a dorm assignment.
Right.
And when they found out I was 21, it was like instant friends, quote unquote friends.
Sure. Yeah. The transactional kind, the best kind. Right. So you start drinking, you start partying with these kids. What's going on with your siblings at home?
My brother is he actually just hit 9 years of sobriety a few days ago.
Beautiful.
So he had a messy. He was a mess at that point in time. We often didn't know where he was, and my sister was in college and dating back home in Minneapolis. Both of them stayed in Minneapolis. My whole family is still in Minneapolis. I'm the only one who's out here in New York.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, college is going on. You're drinking, partying. How are you doing in school? Are you going to make it out? What's the deal?
Yeah, I did make it out, and I made it out pretty well. I got an undergraduate degree in social work, and then I flipped right into grad school because I wanted to become a psychotherapist. So I went to grad school in St. Paul, Minnesota, and banged that out real quick. But before I did that, I actually got married to my college sweetheart.
What was that like?
Well, we were still, I was still Christian, so was she, and we were in a community that was like, if you're dating, like the goal is marriage. Get there. So I think we knew each other for a total of like a year and a half before we got married. I was 24 and she had turned 21 like the week before we got married.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, were the people in the college setting, were they similar, like faith-wise and all this other stuff? Is that just like part of the atmosphere?
Well, I was sort of living a double life. I had this Christian fellowship that I was a part of. I played the guitar and sang as the worship leader in this, like 150 or so person community, Christians. And then I was off in this men's chorus drinking Thursday to Sunday or Friday to Monday. And so I learned to be able to compartmentalize myself and split myself into, and I could play the role. Here I'm a Christian. I behave like a Christian. I speak like a Christian. Over here with, the men's chorus, it was like fit right in with the boys. Drink, talk about women, all that stuff. So I unknowingly learned to. I remember when the one of the leaders, staff in my Christian fellowship, was like, "We saw you at a statesman party, or not we, somebody, and they saw you drinking alcohol." It's like, "Yeah, well, I'm 21, so, and they were like, "Well, they said that you were drinking a lot of alcohol. Do we need to talk about this?" He was very supportive, but my brain took the cue of, "Oh, you got to hide this," And so there's this like dual life going on, and hiding, specifically my drinking.
Right. What about and then you have this girlfriend, and you guys get married.
Mm-hmm.
Which side of the fence is she on?
She grew up Christian, but like born into it. But she was also part of the drinking culture too. So there wasn't much conflict there.
Right. So then you thought you were okay. That's the point of the whole question. You got a wife. You're like, "Hey, look, I'm hanging out with these Christian guys. Obviously, I'm not out of control because I'm having this success. I made my way through college. I have a wife.
Mm-hmm.
I have these friends, and I have these other people who I admire and respect, and they admire and respect me, even to the point of concern, which is nice. The disease is like in camouflage right now.
Oh yeah, no awareness that it was not normal to binge drink from Friday, wake up Saturday, do it again, and Sunday and do it again. It was just what we did in college, right?
Right. That's the thing that it's important for us also to highlight. Like, a problem can show its way and its face in one of many ways. like you don't have to drink every day to maybe have a problem or to be an alcoholic. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to. There are people who drink once or twice a month, and then when they drank and they blacked out and they went bonkers for 3 days. And or if you did it every week, similar to what you're saying, that's like a binge drinking. So like you drink and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then the itch comes and then you scratch the itch. And then you're off to the races for another 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come back and then you're like, okay, but at this point it's still manageable, correct?
Yeah, it was manageable. And in retrospect, the first time I consumed alcohol was at a cast party post a play. It was a post-show party for the cast. And my high school best friend was in town, asked the guy who was hosting to mix me a drink. And I was like, all right. Because I didn't have like a big, I'm 21. It was like, I can drink now. The next day, the story was recounted that I had blacked out, and I was telling everybody that they should start. Can we swear here or no?
Sure.
I was asking everybody if they'd start fucking at the party. Like I was going around apparently telling people or asking people or encouraging them to start doing that. Now, if that's like not in retrospect a red flag of the things to come, I don't know what is.
Yeah, sometimes that stuff is funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you get out of school. So would you get an MSW?
MSW, BSW, and then an MSW in clinical social work.
All right, and you got married.
I got married, and in 2008, me and my wife moved to Brooklyn.
All right.
Kind of followed her sister and brother-in-law, but I had also visited New York in 2002 and was like, I need to live here someday, and we made it happen.
Yeah. So what happens next? You guys get settled down.
We get settled down. We start to we loop into kind of this prefabricated group of friends because my wife's sister and brother-in-law were here, and kind of the college routine continued. Friday night, get out, drinks, expensive dinner, wake up for brunch on Saturday, have your Bloody Marys, your mimosas, and then before you know it, at times drinking most of the weekend.
Right. Where were you guys living?
Carroll Gardens, actually.
Yeah, it's a good neighborhood for that.
It was. I really liked living there. The corner of Third Place and Court Street. Third Place runs into where the F and the G.
Yeah.
Dead end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice over there.
It's a fun spot.
Yeah, definitely. So you have like this, like I don't like to say cookie cutter, but you have like this life where it's like everything is in place. I'm an adult now. I'm married. I'm living in a nice neighborhood in Brooklyn. You're working, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you start working. What was your wife doing at the time? She was working also?
She worked for a very large commercial real estate company in Manhattan, and I was working as either an inpatient psychiatric social worker or an outpatient mental health clinic therapist.
Right.
So we were both.
You guys have it. You guys have it.
Yeah. Married. We in 2010, my oldest, who's now 13, was born. So yeah, kids, wife, career, in New York, just feeling like we were living the life.
Yeah. So when does it start to really show up in your life?
So I remember the minute where I realized that alcohol was a problem. And it was after my wife and our firstborn had moved back to Minneapolis because her mother was dying of multiple myeloma, which is an incurable cancer.
Yeah.
So we went back to support the family. In that time...
She moved there?
Me and my wife with our then one child moved from Brooklyn back to Minneapolis.
Oh, back to Minneapolis. Ooh.
And she started doing well, the mother. Things weren't working out for us. My wife was a hairstylist, and work was not going well for me, and we got the opportunity to come back. We did, and one night so this is 2015. One night I wake up, DT's in withdrawal, and as a
Are you drinking every day at this point?
every day, every night,
Right.
probably like 5 or 6 rocks glasses of straight vodka. I wasn't at that point. I had stopped throwing in seltzer. It was just straight vodka on the rocks, or if it was freezer vodka, it was just cold.
At home.
At home.
Yeah. So it's not like, young yuppie. Yuppie is not a bad word, people. But like young yuppie, we're doing mimosas, we're hanging out with people. Now it's like it goes from that to vodka on the rocks in your house, 5 a night.
Yeah, because I put the kid to sleep.
Right.
My wife was doing hair.
Right.
During the week in the evening. So that's what I did. But I woke up, tactile hallucinations, like bugs crawling over me. I was jerky and jolty. I was hallucinating. I knew what was happening because I work in the mental health field, and it had occurred to me that I was going into withdrawal. And instead of getting maybe proper help for it, I said, I know what to do. I need to go have a drink. And then I started learning to manage my drinking. I have to keep it up. And if I decide not to drink, I have to at least have a little bit. Kind of the manipulation and managing my drinking really became very evident from that point moving forward.
Right. But how successful were you at managing your drinking and staying out of trouble at home? Because I'm sure your wife is not down with you drinking 5 vodkas and putting her kid to sleep, and you're watching the kid.
Well, I was hiding it, and I think drunk Alan ended up kind of being the normal presentation. I was a goofy, loving, pretty calm, gentle drinker. I wasn't angry, I wasn't rageful, I wasn't flying off the handle. So I think when she came home from work, that was just Alan. But it started, and I could blend in whenever my friend group was out because they were hitting it hard too. And so I could hit it harder. But I was doing the thing where my wife is drinking a rosé, I'm drinking a vodka. Oh, babe, you need another one? Okay, I'll get us a refill. I'm filling her cup up. I'm filling my cup up once, chugging it, and then filling it up again, and then walking back to the couch. So I'm doing that 2-to-1 thing. I'm sneaking a drink in the kitchen while I'm pouring it, type of stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of jealousy going on with me in regards to my wife because she started voicing some discontent for the marriage, for the relationship, being married at 21 and not how do they say it? Sowing her wild oats, not having that opportunity. I lost my virginity to her, and she lost her virginity to me. So we didn't get that experience. And she got the itch, and was going out with her girlfriends a lot, and I was feeling certain ways, and to manage that, I was drinking at home and just getting angry, and that was coming out in our interactions, in our fights.
Yeah. I mean, it's, how old were you and how old was she?
At this time?
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at early 30s, early into mid 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. And married for 12, 13 years at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you think about how well you know yourself right now. And you think about, did you even know yourself then?
No.
Compared to the way that you know yourself now, or you're learning to know yourself.
Yeah, there was a realization that I had over the past year and change of sobriety where I get to sift through the shame and feel the shame of this. I was just a warm body next to my wife on the couch when she would come home from work. I was gone. My personality was steeped in vodka, and I was just there. I wasn't, in retrospect, I wasn't who she first met me and knew me to be. And today I'm, I was a shell of who I am today.
Right. And it happens gradually.
Very gradually.
It didn't just show up in one shot.
No.
By this time, you have 2 kids.
And in 2014, our second was born, who's now 9.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Girls, right?
Both girls.
Yeah, it's tough. And you got these 2 girls. You could just hang out and play with them forever.
Yeah.
It's, oh, man. And then you have this wife, and you're, like, drinking.
Yeah.
And she's looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can tell she's, like, doing her own self-examination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you feel that?
I think if I did, I probably drank more to not see it or to not feel the feelings that would probably come up in me watching her or wondering what she's thinking about or hearing what she had to say about how she was feeling with our marriage.
Yeah, because meanwhile, you're, like, angry.
Oh, rageful.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't coming out rageful. It was coming out in, like, drunken sobbing in fights.
Sure.
And very needy. I got very needy.
Oh, of course. We're like, that's how we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we done. I always say, I have this little voice inside of me. Sometimes he yells, sometimes he whispers, but he always says the same thing. He says, when is it going to be my turn?
It's like the little boy in us.
All he says. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, when is it going to be my turn?
Mm-hmm.
When do I get to matter?
Mm-hmm.
And the more I drank, that voice gets louder, and it tells me all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Untrusting, unloving, relentless.
Mm.
That's when they talk about drinking at somebody.
Right.
Yeah. So you would go into these jealous things.
Oh, yeah. There was a point where my my wife had asked for a hall pass, meaning she wanted to, excuse me, she wanted to get out and maybe have some contact with another man, like, without repercussion. And she came home after that incident and was shared that she just, danced all night and made out with some dude. But I thought I was being a understanding, compassionate husband. Go do this. Go do this if this is going to scratch that itch. But I think it intensified the itching for her, and it put me in a place where I couldn't manage my thoughts and feelings around what if she goes? Where is she going to go? Is she going to go? Am I going to have her the rest of my life? Those were devastating thoughts.
Yeah, I think if we can just examine that for a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those cycles, or like what we were talking about before we started, where, like, you can set the stage, right? The stage is set. Does she or you want to be with somebody else? Is this or that or whatever? The truth is that we just don't want to feel what we're feeling.
Mm.
And then we ring a bell. And without communication, without even knowing, or having two willing participants who are just like, we need to talk about like whatever. Then it's just like, because then you ring that bell, you know, you have to pay what you owe, right?
Yeah.
In the sense, and not in a negative sense, means like I learned this from one of my sponsors. He's like, you can do anything you want in recovery, but you got to be willing to pay the price. So nobody knows what that price is. You're saying to yourself, okay, and in all earnest, I believe that you believed. Listen, we were young. We had these kids. Maybe this will just be that, and then we can go back. Like, you know, it sounds silly, but it almost sounds like you're trying to be helpful.
In the hall pass or
Yeah.
that situation, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted that, but it was for me. It was for me. Go scratch that itch. I'll swallow this one. I'll bite my tongue. The expectation is come back and we're okay.
Right.
But
because you don't have to deal with yourself and your participation in the reasoning, whether it's if it's 2% or 22%, you're part of the reason why she's not happy at home.
Right.
Right.
But I was able to promote, or maybe I latched onto this idea of the itch that she had, and it was something that could bury the idea that I have anything to do with this.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you're just like, I just need some relief. And so if I'll let her ring this bell, and then maybe I'll get the relief, and you got the fucking horns.
Oh, the level of paranoid delusions that I would spend time in was just, it was dark, painful space.
Right. And I understand, and I wanted to stop and talk about that because I understand and identify completely with just those motions where you're saying to yourself, you know, I want everything to be okay. And I don't have any other tools, but I need to be okay. So if I just do this thing, then maybe not knowing. And then again, I call it ringing the bell because you can't unring the bell. And the times that I've done that in my life, and then I don't get what I think that I'm supposed to get. I used to feel fucking betrayal. Like it would infuriate me and send me into a wild tailspin of feelings that I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah. Because before allowing that bell to be rung, the feeling I had to sit with is I'm not good enough for you.
Right.
As a husband or a father, as a man, or a lover, I'm not good enough. And feeling incompetent or not good enough, that's a really terrible feeling to sit with.
Sure.
So why not let her do that? Because this is not my problem, is what I was telling myself.
Right.
She gave me an easy out there.
Yeah. And then what happens? You start going off the rails. What happens next?
Yeah. A lot of just jealousy whenever she'd go out with her girlfriends. A lot of violation of her privacy, reading texts.
Sure, yeah.
Looking on her computer.
Dog, I've done all of that.
Yeah. It's
in recovery. Not habitually, but times where I've, that's the thing. We're staying on this thread of you having an expectation that you're going to get some relief. And then you take these actions like, dude, I just need to know that she's not texting anybody, or that I'm safe, that I'm the only one, that blah, 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 blah. And then you open a fucking Pandora's box. You don't even know what's in there. No. And there's like Medusas and all the Kraken is all in there. It's never freaking good. No. Because the times that it is good, and let's say there's nothing there, then you feel like a loser for even doing it. And so it doesn't serve you in any way.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are, as recovering people, what we were sharing about before the meeting, we were building together about learning how to respect the disease, that we are fully capable of doing that stone cold sober, saying like, I need to know, I need to be in control. And then that, you need to remember that alarm bell that you rang without drinking, because that same feeling will come up and you'll want to impulsively, like, no, I need. And then it never serves you.
No. I like, can't remember if I've read this or heard this, but this idea, because it resonates with me, this idea that I am suffering the most when I am fearing losing what I have or fearing not getting what I want.
Right.
I feel like I can almost boil everything down to that.
Right.
And in this situation, I'm fearing losing my wife. That's what I want, and that's what I don't want to lose.
Right.
And it was, it was in the process of happening.
Yeah. And that's something that's out of your control.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think so then.
No, I know. And at the same time, it's 5 vodkas a night.
Yeah.
With 2 little girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a wife that, she's going through her own process.
Yeah.
And she needs help in her own ways, not judging her. But what I'm saying, like, she's like saying like this, this isn't, not saying unsatisfying, but like something is going on.
Yeah.
I have a drunk fucking husband at home
Mm-hmm.
who is there, and I guess he's cool to be around, but he's not really there. And now you're all underneath her fucking fingernails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. She was wanting space, and while she was pushing away, I was pulling her in as tight as I could.
That neediness.
But the more I pulled, the further she, stepped away.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
So what happens? When does the end show up?
The end shows up in April of 2018 when we do a trial separation, where I lived in a studio. Well, we lived in a studio. They call it nesting. If you have children, the house that the family's in, the parent that's not going to spend time with the children goes and stays at a studio on their nights off of having the kids. So it's kind of like a trial separation. And that rolled into a second month of separation, which rolled into her letting me know she wants a divorce. And that all happened very quickly. But that's looking back at it, because she was telling me the whole time. She was telling me for years, this isn't working. Whatever is going on isn't working. And I didn't listen to it. I quieted that. I quieted her voice and any voices in my head with vodka.
Yeah, but the vodka doesn't allow you to listen to any voice except your own.
No.
And he's not telling you good things.
No.
He's not giving you attaboys. He's like, you fucking loser.
Yeah.
All right, so then what happens? You guys file for divorce?
Yeah, it all went pretty quickly. So that was April of 2018. And then commenced 4 years. Yeah, April of 2018 was like getting shot out of a circus cannon of alcoholism. I was drinking whenever I could. For sure, weekends when I didn't have my kids, nights that I didn't have my kids, nights when I did have my kids, I was keeping it together, like drinking, but making sure I wasn't getting sloppy. And I fumbled through a couple of relationships trying to find that next person. I think I took the first woman hostage. I don't think I did. Meaning I presented myself as put together. I mean, I'm a therapist. I work a full-time job. I have kids. I'm divorced. Yeah. Like, it didn't work out. I'm like rationalizing it for this woman.
Right. How old were you at the time?
I mean, this was, this was late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then another relationship, a long distance relationship, with the homecoming queen from high school.
Nice. Yeah, people, they do that. They're like, oh, I remember we went to high school. Now look at this. It was meant to be. It's so funny. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a question I want to ask you
Yeah.
is, you're working in the field of mental health
Hmm.
with kids or with adults,
Always adults.
right? So, did it ever dawn on you that some of these clients are just like you, or you are just like them in their level of unmanageability, and any of them who have substance abuse during that time? Did you have like any I call it situational awareness?
Hmm. I actually restate the question.
Yeah. Did you ever think that you were like some of the people you were helping?
Hmm. Yeah. So I work in a hospital in East Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working with a lot of people with some pretty heavy situations. This is not like, Central Brooklyn, Park Slope clientele. This is
Yeah.
impoverished community, people of color that I'm working with. So drugs and alcohol were in their issues, and for some and some for not. I didn't start to identify with the people I was working with until, because currently I'm in management in a psychiatric emergency room,
Right.
and I remember having the realization that I felt more comfortable in the locked unit interacting, whether it be interviewing someone or helping out staff to like figure out a situation for a patient. I was more comfortable in there than I was out with my own staff.
Right.
Because
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the part of you and the part of them
Mhm.
that is like that you're not even making a conscious decision. You're just like, oh man, somehow these are my people.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was able to identify. I mean, alcohol can I mean delusions,
Right.
that delusional, those storylines that are just so not based in reality. I mean, that was me to a T drinking, but also just feeling so broken and worthless. I mean, I'm telling myself, you're divorced. Alan couldn't keep a marriage together.
Right.
You have two children that only know their mother and their father 50% of the time.
Yeah.
You know, just really, really down, and self-worth was just in the gutter. And the people that I work with and see in psychiatric emergency rooms, you don't end up in a locked psychiatric emergency room like by accident.
Right.
Like there's some heavy stuff going on there.
Sure. So how did you find yourself getting introduced to recovery?
The words, the phrase, I am an alcoholic, rattled around in my brain for a number of years post-divorce.
Like I am or am I?
The words, I am an alcoholic. And it was like, let's make sure those words don't come out of this mouth. And I was doing a lot of reckless behavior. Cocaine entered the mix in like the last year of drinking.
Here we are, friends.
And that was an accelerant. Is that a word?
Yeah. They said it was going from the local train to the express train
I mean,
as far as reaching your bottom.
yeah. Or like just a really fast sports car to a rocket ship.
Yeah.
'Cause who doesn't want to get hammered but also feel like Superman at the same time? That's what I was discovering. And I never got in fights. I was not the guy who think I've been hit like twice in my life, and I've never hit anybody else. But I liked to provoke. I got to like channel my aggression by being an instigator. So I was out what it was to be my last night of drinking, close the bar down on Smith Street, hook up with these 4 like 21-year-olds who are celebrating their first night out. They're all drunk. I'm drunk and coked up. They're probably high. We go to a deli outside of the bar, and there's like a neighborhood guy, maybe my age, 40, 41. And he's busting the chops of these 21-year-olds. Get out of my neighborhood! You're ruining my neighborhood. And all it took was like, guys, are you gonna let him talk to you guys like that? Like, just that's not who I ever was, and that's not who I am today. But at that point in time, that's who I had become.
Right.
And a fight ensued. I went home, passed out. And I ended up calling my good friend, who was actually the first woman that I had a longish term relationship post-divorce. We had become, we had transitioned into a friendship over the years following our relationship, and she invited me over, and I broke down on her living room floor, crying in pain that felt like I was gonna be obliterated. Like I knew it was the end. I knew it was the end of my drinking. I knew I was like it was either gonna be bad, like I was gonna kill myself passively by killing my body with alcohol, or I was gonna do something like talk to the wrong person, get the wrong people into a fight. And this woman said she knew somebody who is in a 12-step program. And that night, I went home. I agreed to meet this guy at our Greenwood room on a Thursday night at 7 p.m. So I did what any alcoholic would do, which was go home and finish the last 2 tall White Claws I had in my fridge, and the half dime bag of Coke on my living room table, and I met this guy, and crossed the threshold of my first 12-step meeting on the 26th of August, 2022.
What made you stay?
My desperation for relief was like hitting 100, and my willingness paired along with the desperation. And I knew that the second that I walked into a room and participated in a meeting, like I was waving the white flag. I just knew it. Like I knew it. I knew that I was, and that actually was the hardest part of walking into that room, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck else to do, because what I did stopped working, and I know where that will go if I keep trying to make it work, but I didn't know what else was going to work.
Yeah, and that's a very, unbeknownst to you at the time, it's like a mothership of a room.
It is.
You could have went to like another room, like, fuck these people. But that room is a very warm, welcoming. It's a little rustic in there.
Yeah.
We have some cookies and a little coffee.
Yeah.
It's definitely like no frills.
No frills. And, those...
not fancy recovery. It's like, hey, man, do you want to have a seat? Sometimes we have these tables up. Sometimes we don't. We have these weird fucking plastic folding chairs. Like, how you doing?
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of fishing is huge in the Midwest in Minnesota.
Right.
And the thing reminds me of like an oversized ice house
Yeah.
on a lake where we're all just dropping lines trying to catch a fish.
Yeah, it's wild. So then you start attending these meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and what is your family thinking? When do you decide to tell them?
Yeah, I kept my sobriety a secret. I mean, I'd burnt my social life to the ground.
Oh yeah,
I had...
bro. You were like in your 40s hanging out with somebody who's 21.
Oh, yeah.
Picking fights on Smith Street. Come on, bro.
Yeah, it was very clear.
Yeah.
But I had this woman who helped direct me to the rooms.
Sure, yeah.
And I had one drinking buddy who didn't have a problem with alcohol that I stayed in contact with. Otherwise, I was reconstructing a social life there. And I wanted to keep this part of me as long as I could, and not in a secretive way. I didn't want to keep from telling family in a way of like, it was just like so it took 4 months, because it was August that I stopped drinking, and I told my mother in December of that year. And it was more like it was precious. This new life I was building and this program that I was working was precious to a point where I wasn't just going to flippantly send a text to family back home. I wanted to tell people in person. And I told my mother, and, we're not a communicative, emotionally communicative bunch over in the Midwest. And so I didn't get this grand reception. And I didn't expect it from her, but, I told her, and she kind of said, if it works for you, good for you, what are we going to eat for dinner? And then I didn't have to have that conversation outside of that.
Nice. What about your dad?
Dad is a goofy character. He's just a goofball. It's where I get my goofiness from when that flares up in me. He was supportive of it. My mom was supportive of it. My sister was supportive of it, and my brother.
They already had, by this time, experience with him turning it around. Am I correct in guessing that?
Yes, he had been 8 years sober, and without getting into his story, I mean, meth, heroin, pills, weed, alcohol. Yeah. Like he's got a very different trajectory.
He's like, I'll take it.
Oh yeah,
I'll take it.
So they saw very rough. I was like, Alan's off in New York, just living life.
Now, while you were going through your bottom, did you ever think about reaching out to him or talking to him about this shit?
No, I had to hide it. I was...
In retrospect, do you think he smelled something? Because you know how we can smell, there's a fire burning down the block.
He visited this past August for the first time. He visited New York, and we got a weekend, just the two of us, which was a beautiful time together, because we also have this shared language now, living a sober life. And I have to admit, he said, he was like, I knew there was like something going on. But as I would share stories over the past year with him of what really went on, he would kind of look at me and shake his head, and he'd be like, you kept that under wraps. You kept that well hidden.
Like a Midwestern Christian hiding, sneaking beers on the weekends with your boys.
Because I had been practicing
your whole life. Like you said, that double life.
Yeah.
How did you step to your wife? Your ex-wife, excuse me. Because that's a big deal too.
I let her know. I had stopped drinking for 6 months at that point, and I was, without getting into this, I was rushed with my first sponsor. I was rushed through the early steps. So I was 6 months sober and on step 9 making amends. Mm-hmm. And I made an amends with her. It was actually a very beautiful conversation. But that's when I had came out to her and let her know. And we had a beautiful conversation about what had happened. And she's very supportive. Is very supportive. But that's how she had found out. And she was relieved because she didn't. There were a couple conversations post-divorce where she was like, are you going to get it together? Just little messages like that, like kind of her way of saying, like, I know something. Like, I don't know, but I know.
Mm-hmm. What about your kids?
My kids have been, I've let it organically come out to them. At first it was like, hey, Daddy's going to go hang out with some friends. And then it was Daddy's going to go to a meeting with friends. And they would start asking questions like, what do you mean? What a meeting? And then I told them at some point that I stopped, Daddy doesn't drink anymore. They would call it like dizzy. Daddy doesn't get dizzy anymore. Or the younger one kind of used that verbiage. And then, as they've, because my brother has no shame. I don't have shame for the life I'm living now, but so when I say he has no shame, my brother and me and my daughters were hanging out together, and the older daughter was like, what are you guys doing? And my brother was like, all right, I'm going to use 13-year-old language to explain exactly what we're doing. Explain to her, she's like, well, me and your dad hang out with people who don't drink or use drugs. And we support each other and we spend time with each other. And we're just great. We encourage each other in the lives we're trying to live in, continuing not to drink or do drugs. And they're like, all right, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't have to be this opera.
No.
It can just be like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
In our mind, we think, like you said, the Midwestern, you say 40 words in 4 words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's nice. What have you been surprised about the most about learning about yourself that you didn't know in recovery? Like, what has surprised you the most? You're like, wow, I thought I was like this, but I'm fucking like this.
Yeah. I mean, I used spirituality and like meditation as a coping skill for my drinking. It was like, it's noon. I can't start drinking until 5. I need to not have a panic attack right now because I can't drink vodka. And so it was like, get into a blank space where I could tune out of myself to get through. But my spirituality, my meditation practice, this being present, like I thought I knew what being present with someone was before, but alcohol I used as a connector. We're drinking together, we're talking together, we're connecting, when really it's a disconnection and we're, two warm bodies like blabbering at each other.
Playing footsie.
Exactly. And with a clear mind and a cleaner spirit, and an interest to spend time with people and hear what's going on in their lives, and for them to ask me what's going on in my life in genuine ways, whether they're about uncomfortable issues in life or really comfortable, joyful things in life, that's a high of its own that I did not know was possible. I didn't know I was capable of having spiritual experiences, like with every interaction I have with a person. That is, when I stop and think about it, like just now, or in general, from time to time, it blows my mind. Still,
Yeah, it's like I call the higher power, I call him God,
mm-hmm.
and God is the greatest. And like, it's just it. You're like, wow, I'm here with another person, and we're sharing this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unadulterated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's uncomfortable, and it's nice.
Yeah,
You know?
it is so, and the presence with my own feelings.
Yeah.
I'm very insightful and analytical because of the work that I do, but for me that can also be a downfall because I can analyze the way I'm feeling and I can intellectualize it, but it doesn't mean I'm feeling my feelings.
Yeah.
It just means I'm talking about them. And grieving the loss of my marriage over the past year, because I deferred the grief, because I was numbing it away.
Put it on the shelf.
Oh,
You said, not today.
And it was there.
I'm drinking today.
And it was waiting for me for 4 years.
Yeah, it's not going to go away on its own, brother.
No. But those moments, those terribly uncomfortable, tearful, feeling again like the day that I got sober, feeling like I was going to be obliterated, that this level of discomfort of feeling was going to obliterate me. Getting over those moments or those times in a day or in a week or in a month, it kind of sounds weird maybe sometimes when I say it, but it's really nice. Even if they're uncomfortable, even if my feelings are uncomfortable on that level, it feels good to feel. And then being on the other side of those spaces and feeling relief and contentment.
Because you earned it.
Yeah.
You earned it all the way through, and knowing that, you don't have to do any of that stuff on your own.
No.
That's the best thing. Is just like, there's a monster in the closet, and maybe I have to open the door,
Mm-hmm.
but there's going to be people behind me shining the light, and there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be people, but I'm not alone
Yeah.
for the rest of my life.
No, because the narrative that I tell myself about that monster behind that door is it is going to fucking kill me. It's going to destroy me. And therefore, I'm going to avoid it and stay away from it as much as possible. But in current times, in this program that I'm working, it's like the door opens and like maybe something shouts really loud and it's a bit scary, but half the shit is just saying, boo.
Yeah.
And then I got the people behind me that you're referring to, this supportive network of people that are just wanting to see me be happy and succeed and want to love me, and do life without putting a substance in my body. That's it's priceless.
Yeah, that's it. All right, so we'll wrap up. Everybody, don't forget, like and subscribe on all podcast platforms. Alan, this was magic. The Sober Experience, Apple, Spotify, everywhere. And, we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.
Thanks, Jared.